Yeah, so it's 11 o'clock and I can welcome everybody to our event. We're going to talk today with Eldad and Shoshi. They live in Israel, and Eldad's grandmother and Shoshi's mother survived the Holocaust. She lived in Heidelberg. And we're going to talk today with them about their family and the family memories. We have 1 hour, and first of all, Norbert is going to say something about the history of Jews in Heidelberg, and then we'll have an interview with Shoshi and Eldad, and we're going to ask some questions from our association, Heidelberger Lupe. And then we open the room for discussion, and all the participants who are joining today have the opportunity to also ask questions. We would like you to ask the questions in the chat, like during the conversation. You can already type the questions you have. And it would be nice if everyone can be muted so that we don't have any disturbing background noises. And we're going to record this session. It's only recorded whoever speaks, so it stays anonymous. And we're doing this because there has been some confusion in the program. The dates were mixed up. It said 18th of March, but it used Sunday as a date. So people were confused. And then we have some participants who couldn't join at this time, but who would like to see what we discussed. So they have the chance to watch it later. The whole event is in German and in English. Now I give some background information in English. I will say it in German afterwards again so that everyone is able to follow. And yeah, we came up with this idea of this format because we're in times where we need to stay digital right now mostly. And Eldad contacted our student association, Heidelberger Lupe, some weeks ago or months ago, and asked if we have more information about his grandmother, Clara. And then I connected him with Norbert. Norbert is the one who mostly researched about the history of Jews in Heidelberg. He worked a lot on this book. It's the collective volume about the history of Jews in Heidelberg from the medieval period until today. And he also published books like this, eröffnet, leben, with like eyewitness accounts and personal documents of Jews who survived the Holocaust. Ja, jetzt nochmal auf Deutsch. Also ich begrüße auch nochmal auf Deutsch alle Teilnehmenden. Wir freuen uns sehr über diese rege Beteiligung und das große Interesse. Wir haben etwa 1 Stunde angedacht für dieses Programm. Es wird auf Deutsch und Englisch sein. Ich mache jetzt die Übersetzung oder Einführung auf Deutsch. Und Norbert wird dann etwas zur Geschichte sagen, zur Geschichte der Juden in Heidelberg. Er macht es auch auf Deutsch und Englisch. Und im Anschluss wird es ein angeleitetes Interview geben mit unseren Teilnehmenden aus Israel, Eldad und Shoshi. Sie sind Nachfahren von einer Holocaust-Überlebenden aus Heidelberg, Eldads Großmutter und Shoshis Mutter. Und nach unserem angeleiteten Interview werden alle Teilnehmenden die Chance haben, auch noch Fragen zu stellen. Wir würden euch und Sie dafür bitten, die Fragen schon während des Gesprächs im Chat aufzuschreiben, weil dann kann ich sie sortieren und bündeln und im Anschluss stellen. Wir zeichnen die Veranstaltung auf, damit auch alle Interessierten, die heute nicht teilnehmen können zu dieser Uhrzeit, diese Veranstaltung auch noch nachverfolgen können, und weil es auch ja, ein unklares Datum bei der Programmankündigung gab mit 18. März, aber Sonntag statt Donnerstag. Ja, wir freuen uns auf diese Veranstaltung und ich würde gleich übergeben an Norbert, der mit seiner Einführung beginnt.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, my name is Norbert Giovannini. I live nearby Heidelberg in a village called Dossenheim. And it's 30 years that we in Heidelberg researched, made much inquiries in the history of the city herself and the Jewish history in special. I will begin with this red book, which Verena showed. And I have to say that if I become problems to express myself in English, Verena will be so kind to translate it for me consecutively. Well, it is, I think it was in 1996 when first I had a contact to the Sipper family. I'm not sure if Emma Sipper had been in Heidelberg invited by the Lord Major Beate Weber, or if we only contacted corresponded by letters. Just this morning I found her letter, and she sent me, because I begged her to write a manuscript for this collection of autobiographical texts to the life and the fate of Jewish families and Jewish persons. Well, she answered me, and she sent me back a manuscript in which she described the evening of the 28th October 1938. This was the evening in which the family sat together, evening meal, and it knocked on the door, and the policeman came and arrested her father. And he was imprisoned, and then he was in this 28 or 29 October, he was brought to the border of Poland. And then he disappeared for a month and came back half a year later, and he made the liquidation of his trade, of his firm, and then he went back to Poland, and his children, his 4 children, his and the children of his wife, were brought to Great Britain. 2 of them, Emma and her brother, was brought to Great Britain with this Kindertransport in May or June, and it was goodbye when they brought their parents to the main station. It was brought forever. They never saw them, and so this. She told this, and she told about the Crystal Night, the Kristallnacht, or the Pogrom Night in November, when the store of the Sipper family was attacked by the SR, and then when the SR came to the apartment of her mother, where she lived with her mother, a neighbor refused the SR to demolish this apartment. Yes, this was my first touch with the family of the Sippers, and meanwhile we continued our research, so I can talk about four Sipper families in Heidelberg.
Norbert, machst du es
yes.
ganz kurz auch nochmal auf Deutsch?
Ja,
Einfach,
okay.
dass
Ja.
alle am Ball bleiben können.
Ja, ich habe ganz kurz geschildert, dass ich glaube, es war 1996, mit Emma Sipper Kontakt hatte. Wir hatten damals das Projekt, ein Buch mit autobiografischen Zeugnissen oder Dokumenten zu veröffentlichen, und ich weiß nicht mehr, ob ich mit ihr korrespondiert habe oder sie selber getroffen habe bei einem Meeting hier in Heidelberg. Sie hat mir jedenfalls einen Bericht geschickt, in dem sie den Abend schildert, an dem ihr Vater festgenommen und dann nach Polen gebracht worden ist. Die Sippers sind eine polnische Familie gewesen. Es war damals eine Polenausweisung im Oktober 1938. Sie schildert, wie ihr Vater nochmal zurückgekommen ist, um die Firma, die Möbelfirma zu schließen, zu liquidieren oder zu verkaufen und dann mit seiner Frau, also Emmas Mutter, wieder nach Polen zurückkehren musste. Dann verlieren sich die Spuren auch von Oskar und Salla Zipper. Die Tochter selbst mit ihrem kleinen Bruder ist mit einem Kindertransport nach Großbritannien entkommen. Ja, das war mein damaliger Stand und mittlerweile haben wir ein bisschen weiter geforscht und haben also 4 Zipper-Familien in Heidelberg gefunden und darüber will ich jetzt noch ein paar Worte sagen. The Zipper families, they came well in the time between 1905 and 1911 to Heidelberg. They all came from this region of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and I think the birthplaces were all in Galicia, and that they came was a result of a great movement of this Eastern Jewish population who tried to find a better place for her life, for a better income, for more safety. Because in this Eastern region, in Russia and in other parts of this Austrian-Hungarian empire, the situation of the Jews was both. It was a good situation because they had their residences in the shtetls and in other sorts of communities, but oftenly there happened what we call pogroms, and it was a constant discrimination in this epoch, and so they tried to emigrate. Lots of them emigrated to the United States, but in the same quantity they came to the middle or to the west of Europe, and they settled in Germany. I think these Zipper families came well in 1905, 6, 7, and they stayed here in Heidelberg. And I will begin with the family of Josef Zipper, who established in 1907 as a trader, as a merchant in furniture. All the Zippers in Heidelberg were engaged in furniture stores. They were auctioneering, and it's a bit discrimination to use the word what was used there in this epoch. I think it was the word they were Trödler. Trödler has a negative connotation, but it is today we say second-hand, and I think at first they were engaged in second-hand trade with furnitures, and this was quite important because the population, the inhabitants of Heidelberg, like all the other cities, they were divided in those who were rich and well established and had a high income, and those who had a low income. And it was quite necessary that they could buy furniture, clothes, and whatever, books perhaps, in shops to a lower price. And there it was a segment of economy where these Jewish families coming from Eastern were absolutely necessary and were respected and accepted in the community, in the city, in the neighborhood. And so we can say that this Josef Zipper and his family, Salla Zipper, his wife, and the 4 children, began this epoch, this dynasty of the Zippers in Heidelberg. I don't know if ich sage es kurz in Deutsch. Also zuerst muss man festhalten, dass die Zipper-Familien klassische ostjüdische Familien sind, wahrscheinlich aus Galizien gekommen sind. im Zuge einer großen Bewegung, einer großen Wegbewegung aus dem ostjüdischen Kontext, zum Teil Emigration in die Vereinigten Staaten, zum Teil aber auch Niederlassungen in Deutschland, überhaupt in Mitteleuropa, in Westeuropa, um den diskriminierenden und auch zum Teil gefährlichen Bedingungen in ihren Herkunftsländern zu entkommen, wo es eben sehr viele Pogrome gegeben hat und auch eine sehr aggressive antisemitische Situation herrschte. Die Sippers sind so um 1905 bis 1907, 8, 9, 10, 11 nach Deutschland gekommen, nach Heidelberg gekommen, haben sich hier niedergelassen. Alle waren im Bereich des Möbelhandels tätig und es war wahrscheinlich nicht der Möbelhandel der exklusive und teure Möbelhandel, wie er in der Hauptstraße in Heidelberg vertreten war, sondern es waren eher Geschäfte, die wir heute als Second-Hand-Geschäfte bezeichnen, wo also zu einem niedrigen Preis Möbel, Kleider und was auch immer alles verkauft wurde. Das war eine ökonomische Notwendigkeit damals, weil ein Großteil der städtischen Bevölkerung doch an der Armutsgrenze lebte. Ich habe es vorhin nicht in Englisch gesagt, aber es ist natürlich die Inflation um 1923 herum. Es ist die Weltwirtschaftskrise 29, also ein beträchtlicher Teil der Heidelberger Bevölkerung war elementar darauf angewiesen, dass es solche Geschäfte gegeben hat. Weswegen ich auch denke, dass die Sippers wie alle anderen aus Polen, aus Osteuropa kommenden Familien eigentlich sehr respektiert waren. Well, I continue in English. I think this family.
And Norbert, can you be precise and maybe move on to the PowerPoint also? Because
yes,
yeah,
yes,
it should be a short overview.
Yes, okay. The Josef Sipper was in Eppelheimer Straße 11. This is not the original picture of Eppelheimer Straße 11, as you see. This is it was a store and a warehouse, and then they lived in this Eppelheimer Straße till 27, and later they had a second shop in the Sandgasse number 2. This is the original house in the Sandgasse 2 in the ancient city, in the ancient part of the city. Yes, they left Heidelberg in 25 or 27. I don't know why. Perhaps they had difficulties with their shops. That often happened, but and they left Heidelberg, and the other Sipper families stayed a bit longer. I talk about the family of Hermann Sipper.
And maybe very briefly this auf Deutsch nochmal?
Ja, also gut. Diese erste Familie, Josef Sipper, ist dann Ende der 20er Jahre weggezogen, wissen nicht ganz genau wohin. Aber die anderen Familien Sippers sind noch länger hier geblieben, vor allen Dingen die Familie von Hermann Sipper. Und vielleicht kannst du zu Hermann Sipper mal die Kronprinzenstraße 43 zeigen. Das ist heute nicht mehr die Kronprinzenstraße, sondern die Dantestraße 43, wo sie ihre Wohnung hatten und wohl auch den Möbelladen. Well, this is Dantestraße today. It was Kronprinzenstraße 43, where the other family, the other Sippers, the Hermann Sipper and his wife, Fanny Sipper, lived and had their shop in the Weststadt in Heidelberg. Hermann and Fanny Sipper, I think it was furniture shop in a perhaps better quality. I know that once they tried to rent rooms in the Hauptstraße, or they tried to install an auctioneer hall in the ancient city. And yes, but in 31, perhaps on 32, they become in any way problems, maybe a result of the world economic crisis or whatever. And so the shop was perhaps for some months or years, it was closed, and they tried it again. Though of this, this difficult situation, they rested in Heidelberg, and their 3 children, Israel, Clara, and Selma, were students. Israel studied at the university, and I think Clara, after she made the baccalaureate, she tried to study too at the university. And as the Sippers in Israel told us last meeting, it was one reason of being in Heidelberg, the decision that the children should have best schools or the best universities they could find. Ja, ich schildere gerade, dass die Firma Hermann Sipper ein bisschen in Schwierigkeiten geraten schien. Anfangs hatten sie ganz gute Adressen. Die Weststadt ist ja nun auch ein besseres Pflaster als die Altstadt und möglicherweise auch als das damalige Neuenheim. Aber es scheint wohl auch ökonomische Schwierigkeiten gegeben zu haben. Jedenfalls verschwindet der Name Sipper, Hermann Sipper und seine Frau Fanny für einige Zeit aus dem Einwohnermeldebuch. Trotzdem sind sie hier geblieben, und es ist auch bemerkenswert, dass alle ihre 3 Kinder, Israel, Clara und Selma, hier weiter auf die Schulen gegangen sind. Israel hat Jura studiert, soweit ich weiß, Jura und Soziologie. Clara hat Abitur gemacht und wollte wohl auch studieren, und Selma ist am Gymnasium gewesen. Das zeigt, dass es ein ganz spezielles Interesse auch dieser Familie Sipper gegeben hat, in Heidelberg zu sein, einer Stadt, in der man gute Schulen und eine berühmte Universität hatte. Das war also eine ambitionierte Entscheidung für Heidelberg, trotz aller möglichen ökonomischen Schwierigkeiten oder auch Probleme mit Kunden. Yeah, I continue in English. I think there were some difficulties with clients of the furniture shop in the 30s. And so this Sipper family decided in 33, as I know, 33 or 34, to emigrate, to fly first to France, to Strasbourg, and from there to exile themselves to Palestine. This was a good decision. This was a decision which saved their life. They could survive the Nazi time and the Holocaust. The 3rd family, Sipper, I would talk about the family of Jakob Sipper and Salah Sipper. Jakob was named Oscar, therefore I say now Oscar, was named Oscar. Oscar and Salah Sipper, they did not fly. They stayed in Heidelberg, and they stayed there till, as I told at the beginning, they stayed there till 38, when the parents were deported to Poland, brought back to Poland, and where they disappeared. We don't know what was their fate. Well, a last days, I received from the archive of the city of Heidelberg some documents which show that there was probably the father of all these Sippers, and this is Isaac Sipper. Sorry, not Isaac Sipper, Chaim Sipper, an old man and an old woman. He was born in 1848 and his wife was born in 1849. And they came to Heidelberg late for some years, from 1915 till 1927. And I think Chaim Sipper and his Jula or Jucha Sipper, born Frankfurter, they came to Heidelberg perhaps to visit children, Hermann, Josef, and Oscar, or to install here as
Norbert,
yes.
machst du nochmal die beiden Zipperstränge, die es gibt, damit das klar ist, auf Deutsch?
Ja,
und dann müssen wir auch langsam übergehen, dass wir Eldad und Shoshi auch noch die Gelegenheit geben. Ne?
Good. Okay. I regret the confusion, but there are really many Ziffers. Therefore, it's necessary to document it. Also, wir haben drei Familien hier gehabt. Josef, ich sage mal nach den Männernamen, Josef Sipper und Mina oder Nina Sipper, Hermann Sipper und Oskar Sipper, die alle im Möbelhandel beschäftigt waren. Und meine Frage war, hat es sozusagen auch Vorläufer gegeben? Gab es also auch vor 1907 jemanden, der hierher gekommen ist? Und es ist jetzt ein Zufallsfund, dass das Archiv der Stadt Heidelberg mir ein paar Unterlagen zugeschickt hat über einen Chaim Sipper und seine Frau Jucha oder Jula. Die sind erst 1915 hierher gekommen. Ich glaube, dass es die Eltern dieser drei Sipper-Männer gewesen sind. Und sie sind dann für 12 Jahre hier gewesen, auch bis 1927, bevor sie nach Belgien ausgereist sind. Was ich sagen will, es ist eine Dynastie von Möbelhändlern gewesen, die sehr etabliert waren, die auch sehr anerkannt und sehr respektiert gewesen sind, bis zu dem Break 1933. Let me say last sentence. It's both. It's a history of success. It's a good history coming from Eastern Europe and establishing here in Heidelberg or in other cities and being well-established merchants. Well, they were a bit religiously separated from the liberal main community, Jewish community. They were more traditional, of course. If they were Zionists, I don't know. If they were really Orthodox Jews, I don't know. But I think they were a bit separated, and they had two dimensions of discrimination. One discrimination is the antisemitism in this epoch, which was strong and which was increasing in this time. And on the other hand, it gave a discrimination in the inner of the Jewish community. Across the liberal, liberal community and the well-established academic part of the Jews in those times, they tried to rest in distance to these Eastern Jews. The Eastern Jews were in this sense discriminated in one sense by the anti-Semitism in this epoch, which was not in the majority before 33. And I think it was an inner Jewish discrimination from the liberal, from the academic, and from the well-established liberal Jewish community. Well, okay, I think I can finish, and if there are more questions, well, I will answer if possible. Soll ich das nochmal ganz kurz Deutsch sagen?
Nochmal ganz kurz auf Deutsch, die, genau.
Ja, also was ich sagen will, ist, dass diese aus Osteuropa kommenden jüdischen Familien hier eigentlich einen guten Stand hatten. Ich habe es ja vorhin schon ökonomisch erklärt. Ich glaube auch, dass sie kulturell durchaus akzeptiert worden sind. Der Antisemitismus und die Radikalvölkischen sind keine Majorität gewesen vor 1933. Das sind sie dann nach 1933 gewesen. Da ist der Antisemitismus zur Staatsideologie geworden und die Verfolgung hat natürlich brutal zugenommen. Aber davor waren sie eigentlich eine sehr anerkannte und etablierte Größe in dieser Stadt. Sie hatten zwei Dimensionen der Diskriminierung auf der einen Seite, eben seitens des Antisemitismus, den man spürbar jeden Tag erlebte. Und auf der anderen Seite gab es auch eine Diskrepanz innerhalb der jüdischen Community. Die ostjüdischen Familien und Personen waren doch ein bisschen in sich geschlossen und ein bisschen separat. Sie standen in größerer Distanz zu der liberalen Hauptgemeinde und die Mitglieder der liberalen Hauptgemeinde standen auch ein bisschen in Distanz zu den Ostjuden, die sie nicht mochten und mit denen sie nicht gerne in Kontakt gestanden haben. Es war eine kritische und schwierige Situation, aber bis 1933 eine Situation, die eigentlich sich sehr positiv entwickelt hat.
Okay,
Vielen Dank.
Danke Norbert. Und Rückfragen zum historischen Kontext gerne im Chat an Norbert. So if you have more questions about the history, feel free to write in the chat and then we can answer in the discussion later. So now we'll go over to Eldad and Shoshi. Like Eldad's grandmother and Shoshi's mother. Clara Sipper, she lived in the Ladenburger Straße 36 before she escaped via France to Palestine and this way survived the Holocaust. So yeah, welcome Eldad, welcome Shoshi. We're so happy to have this event with you. What do you know about Clara Sipper? Was wisst ihr über Clara Sipper?
So thank you, Verena, and I would like to take this opportunity to just outline not the personal story about the Zippers or our side of the Zippers, but I would like to take this to talk about the anti-Semitism and what this talk is about. So as Norbert explained about the personal history, so there is a lot of personal items along it, but I think the main story that we want to emphasize here is that the Zippers, just like other immigrated Jews from other places, were embedded in the local culture, in the local town of Heidelberg, just like in other local towns or cities in Germany. And when I say embedded, I mean they lived among other Germans, and they even saw themselves as Germans, even though they were separated by only one thing, which is their faith, which is Judaism. So they even fought for Germany in the First World War. So my mother's grandfather fought alongside other Germans and was captive by the Soviets for many years because he fought. I mean, they saw themselves as Germans. So this is what I would like to, like the story that I would like, or the emphasis that we would like to place is that the whole idea is that they saw themselves as Germans. They did not even think that even a bit of anti-Semitism will lead to such thing as what the Nazis did, just as the Holocaust. So this is like the main impact. That this is why we need to put a lot of emphasis on that we shall never allow any sort of anti-Semitism of any sort, because we don't know what it can lead to. And as we see in the past, this is what it led to in the past. So this is like the main story. Verena, back to your question. Sorry if I...
Can I briefly, just to make the point in German as well? Because I don't know how the level, we have 50 participants.
I want to add, Norbert talked about a few years that the shop was closed. And the reason was that my grandfather, he was captive in Russia after he took part in the First World War as a German, and that's why the store was closed. That's what I wanted to add.
Okay, vielen Dank. Nochmal kurz auf Deutsch. Eldad hat nochmal sehr stark den Punkt gemacht, dass die Familiengeschichte eine in gewisser Weise typische jüdische Geschichte oder Geschichte von Jüdinnen und Juden in Deutschland ist. Sie haben sich als Deutsche gesehen und er will nochmal wirklich den Antisemitismus betonen, dass viele Jüdinnen und Juden in Deutschland überrollt waren von dem Ausmaß des Antisemitismus im Nationalsozialismus. Und dass viele gar nicht damit gerechnet haben am Anfang, dass Antisemitismus zum Holocaust führen kann. Deswegen wollte er nochmal uns alle sensibilisieren, ja, dass man da wachsam ist für Antisemitismus und die Warnzeichen auch früh genug erkennt. Shoshi hat nochmal klar gemacht, dass ihr Großvater, also Clara Sippas Vater, auch als Soldat im Ersten Weltkrieg für Deutschland gekämpft hat, wie viele Juden in Deutschland. Und er war auch in Gefangenschaft in Russland und deswegen war das Möbelgeschäft geschlossen. Eldad?
Yeah. So do you want to go again about the questions, and then we'll be able to...
Yeah. Maybe you say a bit about what you know about your grandmother, what she, like in the oral history or family memory, what was discussed.
So yes, I would like, thank you. 1 second. So I prepared a very, very short couple of only photos to emphasize the whole idea. So what you see in front of you is a photo from Heidelberg in the early 1930s. And you can see it's very pleasant, and the whole idea, and this is just what we feel from the ancestors, that the living in Heidelberg was very nice and everything was very comfortable and everything was okay until 1932, 1933. So the whole idea was that it came roughly out of the blue. This is another photo from the University of Heidelberg at the same time. And until 1932, roughly nothing really happened there was nothing that interfered, well, I would say, with their life, and they felt totally German, just like any other German that they worked with or studied with and so on. And this is why they went to the same university and they lived together and so on. This photo I found was from 1936 already, from the same university you saw before. So the same Heidelberg University, when they had their 550 year anniversary, they already had the swastika, and everybody already held for Hitler over here, because they already marched everybody to do that. So it was only like in a very small period of time that this happened. And this is what amazes so much. So only from a personal, coming back to the personal point of view, so the family of my grandmother, my mother's mother, and her siblings and their parents, very roughly, they fled in 1933 after Hitler took power. They already fled. They understood that something was wrong. They already felt the anti-Semitism at that time. They fled to France, both to Strasbourg and to Paris. And it took them roughly 2 years to get from Strasbourg and other places in France to Palestine. So they had a very long journey because they fled and they didn't even have anything on them, not only money, of course, and stuff like that. They didn't even have papers. So they were refugees. So for 2 years, they lived in refugees until they reached Palestine. And this is Tel Aviv today. This is where we live today. So obviously today it looks very different. Photos, by the way, from really the last week in Tel Aviv. And I do want to point out one last thing that is, once again, to show you how much they were part of the local community even. This is Pharrell Herman Mas, together with Israel and Clara Zipper, the son and daughter of Herman and Fanny Zipper, while he visited Israel in 1964. They were also in touch, obviously, before that in Germany, if you'd like to elaborate a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe can I just make it briefly in German again, what Eldad just said. Also Eldad hat nochmal ein paar Fotos gezeigt und dabei deutlich gemacht, wie schnell dieser Umschwung auch passiert ist. Also er hat Fotos von Heidelberg und der Uni im Besonderen gezeigt, ohne nationalsozialistische Flaggen und dann zum 550. Jubiläum der Uni, wie auf einmal überall Fahnen sind. Und das hat sich natürlich auch in der universitären Lehre wieder gespiegelt, wo vorher Jüdinnen und Juden ganz selbstverständlich auch mit an Kursen teilgenommen haben, aber wo dann auch Antisemitismus Einzug hielt ins universitäre Leben. Und dann hat er noch eine Karte gezeigt und gesagt, es hat seiner Großmutter und ihrer Familie 2 Jahre gedauert zu fliehen. Sie waren Flüchtlinge, hatten kein Geld, sind erst über Straßburg und Paris geflohen und dann ins damalige Palästina, und hat dann noch Fotos vom heutigen Tel Aviv und vom Strand gezeigt. Genau, Shoshi?
Ja, was Eldad erzählt hat, war ein bisschen kurz. Ich meine, wie ich euch schon gesagt habe, meine Mutter hat gefühlt, dass es sehr, sehr unsicher in Heidelberg ist, und sie hat Heidelberg verlassen und ist nach Straßburg gefahren. Ich glaube, es war um 1932, und dann hat sie dort gearbeitet, da sie kein Geld mit gehabt hat, als Au-pair, und in den Abends hat sie studiert, ist sie studieren gegangen, und ihre Schwester Selma ist zu ihr gekommen, und dann haben sie einen Brief bekommen von den Eltern, dass der Bruder Israel ist in sehr großer Gefahr. Er war Jurastudent in Heidelberg University, und er hat sich diskutiert, und die Eltern haben verstanden, dass er in sehr großem Risiko ist, und so haben sie beschlossen, den 2 Töchtern das zu schreiben. Und meine Mutter hat einen Brief an ihren Bruder geschrieben und hat sie gebeten, dass der Bruder nach Straßburg kommt, so dass die 3 schon in Straßburg waren. Und da es hat nicht lange gedauert, wie meine Mutter einen Brief bekommen hat, dass mein Großvater im Gefängnis ist. Ist sie zurück nach Heidelberg gefahren, und zusammen mit ihrem Onkel, ich glaube es war Josef, haben sie den Vater vom Gefängnis, ich weiß nicht wie, haben sie ihn rausgeholt. Am selben Tag, da sie haben sehr gut Pfarrer Maas gekannt und waren mit ihm in sehr guten Beziehungen, sind sie zu ihm gegangen, und er hat ihnen gesagt, nehmen Sie nicht viele Sachen, ich werde Ihnen helfen, und ist mit ihnen zusammen an die Grenze gefahren, und er hat sie durch die Grenze nach Frankreich geholfen, und so haben sie Deutschland verlassen, sie haben alles dort liegen lassen und sind nach Frankreich gekommen.
Again in English, maybe briefly.
Yeah.
Shoshi explained a bit more what she felt was not so precise yet. So her grandmother already felt unsafe in the early 30s, and she was the first one leaving Heidelberg, and she got a letter from her parents saying that her brother Israel is in a great and bigger danger because he's studying law. That's the law student. And the parents were asking for help. And then she talked about another letter the parents said, saying that the granddad was imprisoned. So they, Shoshi was highlighting, there were many hints already, not just that they felt anti-Semitism, but it became very concrete in the university and in imprisoning the grandfather. And then the family decided, with the help of Pfarrer Maas, the evangelical pastor, who Eldad showed a picture earlier with him, And he was helping the family to go to the border, to the French border, and he advised them, take as little as you can, and he was helping them to cross the border.
Yeah.
Excuse me, can you understand me? My name is Heidelberger. I'm problems to get my my portrait on the screen, but I follow with interest the discussion here. And earlier on, Mr. Eldad Shiloh or Shiloh, did I get that correctly? That he was of the opinion that in Heidelberg was everything okay till the 1930s. As far as I know, that's not correct. Heidelberg was a town with a strong Nazi followership, and they early on achieved high votes in the elections. And there was at the university a Nobel Prize winner. I don't remember his name, but he was a fervent nationalist against the Jews, especially against Albert Einstein, for example. And also Heidelberg University was the first one that was cleansed, that was free of Jewish scientists, you see. And Heidelberg was, if you like, a Nazi town, an early Nazi town. No doubt about that.
Thank you for the remark. Maybe if you have further comments or questions, please send them in the chat, first of all, so that we have the chance to give Eldad and Shoshi the word. It's true what you say. Norbert maybe can elaborate on this a bit more in the end, because he also researched this kind of past of Heidelberg, how it became, so we say brown in German, why it was so fast that there was such a strong support of National Socialism. Also es gab nochmal den Hinweis darauf, dass Heidelberg schon sehr nationalsozialistisch gestimmt war, auch am Anfang der Diktatur, und dass es da eine große Unterstützung gab und deswegen auch die Universität sehr schnell dabei war, eben auch Jüdinnen und Juden auszuschließen und zu verfolgen. Eldad and Shoshi, maybe you can tell more about your grandma and her journey, how you said she was a refugee. What did she tell you about the journey? Also was hat sie über die Flucht genau erzählt?
Sie haben die Eltern genommen und nach Paris gefahren. Und dort haben sie ein Zimmer für die Eltern gefunden. Und die Kinder sind nach Südfrankreich gefahren. Und dort haben sie gearbeitet. Und das Geld, das sie verdient haben, haben sie nach Paris geschickt, damit die Eltern sich kaufen können, was sie nutz war. Und die Eltern, es war eine sehr schwere Zeit, da die Eltern und auch sie im Süden keine Papiere gehabt haben. Sie haben sehr viel Angst gehabt, dass etwas passieren wird, dass sie keine Dokumente gehabt haben. Und dann haben sie einen großen Glück gehabt. Sie haben 2 Brüder kennengelernt, jüdische Brüder, die Zertifikate von der englischen
from the British mandate in Palestine
gehabt haben, so dass sie nach Palästina kommen könnten. Und sie haben beschlossen, die 2 Brüder zu heiraten, damit sie nach Palästina kommen können. Sie haben verstanden, dass sie keine Zukunft haben in Europa, und sie wollten nach Palästina. Und das war ein Weg, so dass sie nach Palästina kommen könnten. Und sie haben die 2 Brüder geheiratet, und sie sind nach Palästina gekommen. Später, nachdem sie schon in Palästina waren, haben sie die Möglichkeit gehabt haben, zu bekommen Dokumente, dass die Eltern auch nach Palästina kommen könnten. Und so sind die Eltern auch nach Palästina gekommen und alle waren schon sehr froh hier, in was heute ist Israel.
So Shoshi was explaining how the whole journey and seeking refugees in Palestine, or first in France, how that worked out for the family. So the two girls of the family, her mother and the sister of her mother, went to the south of France and worked there. And by working there, they earned money which they could send to the parents in Paris. In the south of France, they met two Jewish brothers who had like the possibility to get certificates from the British Mandate of Palestine, also for the two girls. And that's how they got the legal documents to cross over to Palestine, because like the two girls were always afraid because they were living without any documentation and in great insecurity in Europe, and they understood by then that they can't stay there. It's not safe for them. And so they went over to Palestine first, and then later on got the documents over there for their parents as well to come and join them. Und könnt ihr noch ein bisschen auf die erste Zeit in Israel eingehen und das Ende des Krieges? Und wir hatten bei unserem letzten Gespräch auch über den Besuch von Konrad Adenauer gesprochen, wenn ihr da noch ein bisschen drauf eingehen könnt. So I was asking about like the first time of the family in Israel shortly after the war, and when the new governor or chancellor of Germany, Adenauer, came to visit Israel in the early 1950s, because there's some family connections to this story too.
No?
When they came to Israel, to Palestine, they had to work whatever they had here. So they went to work as helpers and so on. They couldn't go on with their studies at the university. My uncle didn't finish his PhD in Europe, my mother and her sister too, they couldn't, they had to work and to earn money, they had nothing. But later on, what I forgot to say, that the marriage of the two sisters was not it was a fake marriage.
Convenient.
Just in order to get to Palestine. And when they got to Palestine, they divorced the two, and the boys knew about it. It was like a deal. And they divorced the two brothers. And after that, each of them found the guy they wanted to live with. And both of them had children, and they found a good place to work, and everything was okay. There was a problem which I didn't know. I just heard about it last time we spoke from Norbert about what happened with my grandfather and
the government after the war in the 50s sent out a tax request for what happened during the 30s for his shop, if I'm not mistaken. Even though they were prosecuted during that time, and even though there was no shop, and they even didn't stay in Heidelberg, they still got a letter claiming that they owe money to to the German tax authorities, which is doesn't make any sense, obviously.
My uncle Israel Zipper, he wrote letters, and if I'm not wrong, I remember that he wrote even to Adenauer a letter complaining about it. And when Adenauer was in Israel, I remember he met him. It was talked about. I was very young, but there was a talk at home that my uncle met him and talked with him. What I wanted also to say is about Pfarrer Maas, that he was the first non-Jew that was officially invited to Israel. And then he was, at 1964, he was recognized as richest among the nations, which is, he was recognized really as a person who helped many people, not just my family, during this terrible time in Germany.
So the two of them made clear that the family in the first years when they came to Palestine, they didn't have anything, neither the girls nor the brother who studied law and did a PhD. Oh no, it's I have to do it in German, sorry. Also der Onkel hatte, also die Familie hatte nichts. In den ersten Jahren, als sie ins damalige Palästina kam, weder die beiden Schwestern noch der Bruder, der Jura studiert hatte. Und Shoshi hat noch klar gemacht, dass die Heirat, die sie eingegangen sind in Frankreich, nur eine Scheinehe war. Aber das war ein gemeinsames Abkommen mit den beiden Brüdern, weil es ihnen eben die Flucht ermöglichte. Und sie ließen sich dann scheiden und heirateten wieder. Dann die Geschichte mit Konrad Adenauer und dem Antisemitismus nach 1945. Da ging es um Restitutionsklagen eigentlich. Und im Prinzip hat die deutsche Regierung oder die Gerichte nicht anerkannt, dass die Familie in Not geriet aufgrund des Antisemitismus, sondern sie hatten der Familie vorgeworfen, sie wollten sich noch bereichern und wollten auch Geld nicht zurückzahlen. Genau, und der Onkel Israel Zipper, der hat auch Kontakt zu Adenauer gehabt und ihm einen Brief geschrieben. Shoshi selber, sie war noch sehr klein, sie hat das mitbekommen, dass es diese Kontakte gab, aber im Prinzip ist dies etwas, was sie erst durch die Forschung von Norbert Giovannini herausgefunden hat. Genau, und sie hat dann nochmal betont, dass auch Pfarrer Maas, der jetzt auch schon öfter angesprochen wurde, dass er der Erste war, der auch als Gerechter unter den Völkern anerkannt wurde und eben auch nach Israel kam. Also der spielte auch für Heidelberg und für die Verfolgung von Jüdinnen eine große Rolle, weil er eben doch auch sehr viel Hilfe gewährte und leistete, wo er nur konnte. Genau. Maybe you can tell us what what if you talk about the family memory, how much you talked about the Holocaust, and what your relation to Germany is today, to Germany in general, but also to Heidelberg. Have you ever been there? And yeah.
So I would like to speak a bit generally, and then maybe my mother can add about the family. So generally, the generation of my mother, which is the second generation of those who the refugees from Europe. So generally speaking, most of them, or it was a taboo to talk about the Holocaust, or not a really taboo, but they didn't want to raise it. So in many families and in many places, it wasn't even discussed. This is one of the reasons that in my generation, which is the grandchildren, we have a lot of questions and we raise this and we want to know, because in many of the cases, not in all of them, it wasn't like many of the stories weren't brought up or discussed. I think that in my mother's family, it was a bit different because they did discuss at least some of it. And this is why she already knows many of these stories. Would like to elaborate?
Yeah, about myself, I was in Heidelberg just once. I wanted to see the place because I heard a lot of stories from my mother, her memories as a child who grew up there. She was born there and grew up there. And I was another time in Germany. I felt always very bad, especially if I saw older people, and I instantly thought, what did they do during this terrible time? And that's why I didn't go more to Germany, because it really, it was, I didn't feel well over there. My mother didn't want to go to Germany too. Later, when she already was in Israel. And then once she went to Germany, she wanted just to see once Heidelberg. And I remember she told me she was there and she was supposed to sleep over there for one night, and she was unable to do it. And she left and went to another city to sleep over before she goes back to Israel. Because she told me I couldn't stand it. It was really too much for me. That's what I remember. Unfortunately, she died very young, and I was too young to ask many stories, many questions. And that's what I remember she told me by herself. It's not because I asked questions. I believe if she would live longer, then, and we had more chance to talk about things, but we didn't have the chance to do it.
Eldad?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, thank you everyone. My name is Moshe Katz, and it was you that introduced me to Norbert and to Varan for this meeting, and I'm very grateful for having the opportunity to be able to join, and it's nice to see you together with your mum, and it's nice to see lots of relatives that I've never seen before. I just wanted to thank you again for inviting me and tell you who I am, so that maybe the people in this meeting can appreciate the English side of the Sipper family. My name is Moshe Katz, and on this meeting is my second cousin, Isaac Stefanski. And we are grandchildren of Herman Sipper and his sister Clara Sipper. Herman Sipper just passed away a month or two ago, which is really what spurred us on to do this research via Jenny.com, the website that traces family history. And that led me to you, and it led me to other people in order to be able to try and get a better understanding what went on in Heidelberg. So my grandmother and Isaac Stefanski's grandfather were children of Oscar Sipper, Yeshua Yaakov Sipper, and I believe that his siblings were the brothers and sisters of your mother, if that's correct.
Cousins.
Cousins. Okay. So we're the English connection to the Heidelberg connection.
I can add something. I remember maybe your father, I'm not sure about it, who visited us at our home in Israel. I was very young, and he came and he studied in Bnei Brak. He came for a period, I think it was a year, and he studied in a yeshiva in Bnei Brak, and then he went back to London.
If you can just,
yeah, that would
I remember one of.
That was my father. Yeah, that was I'm Moshe's cousin. That was my father.
Okay.
Zvi Sipper, who just passed away.
And I remember. I'm sorry. And I remember that my mother went to England and she met Claire Zipper in Leeds. I remember it. It was about 1960. And she was like the center of the family, and she she met most of them, and those who she couldn't meet, she was writing letters.
If I could just say one thing, I you know, there's not enough time to be able to sing the praises of my grandmother and Mr. Hermann Sipper, who just passed away. But if there's anything that can be said, is that their lives were so tremendously wonderful in the families that they brought up and the families that they were able to raise after coming to England with absolutely nothing. And if that says anything about the illustrious Zipper family, it says a huge deal that they were able to raise such wonderful children. And it's quite humbling to be able to be part of a family where there's such wonderful people involved. My cousin who just spoke is Mrs. Stefanski, and she's a sibling of many children that Hermann Sipper raised. And it's just a truly great testament to the Sipper lineage, in that what we see today is a great result of the hard work that they put in, both in Heidelberg and in places before that. So it's a great pleasure to be able to be with you all today.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful moment we are all experiencing, but I think we have to make it a bit more clearer for all the participants who are a bit confused now and don't know what's happening. I'll do it in German first and then I sum it up in English. Also für alle, die jetzt vielleicht ein bisschen überrascht sind, was hier gerade passiert ist, wir haben ja, Norbert hat von den zweiten Strang der Familie erzählt, die nach England ausgewandert sind. Und jetzt haben sich hier gerade die Nachfahren eingeschaltet. Und es gab sowas wie eine Family Reunion. Also es sind immer mehr, auch Hadassah noch, die ich selber jetzt auch gar nicht zuordnen kann, ob sie in England oder Israel ist. Und immer mehr Leute, die hier teilnehmen heute und gesagt haben, ich bin der so und so Cousin von so und so. Also es werden hier jetzt Familienstränge wieder zusammengeführt und das verdeutlicht ja vielleicht auch nochmal das Motto der Internationalen Wochen gegen Rassismus, was jetzt auch in diesem Jahr ist, und zwar Solidarität grenzenlos oder grenzenlose Solidarität. Und ich finde es schön, dass in diesen Zeiten wir jetzt die Möglichkeit haben, über auch diese Online-Verfahren, Zoom und so, solche Art von Austauschen zu haben. Moshe hat noch auf etwas darauf hingewiesen, dass, also er ist von dem Strang Hermann und Clara Sipper und die UK Familienlinie, und er hat dann eben auch darauf hingewiesen, dass es der Familie in England ähnlich ging. Also sie hatten nichts am Anfang und auch seine Eltern mussten die Kinder mit wenig Grundlagen, also Vermögen und so großziehen, und er hat nochmal eine ganz große Dankbarkeit auch dafür ausgedrückt. Eldad und Shoshi haben vorher sind noch mal ein bisschen darauf eingegangen, was in der Familie so erzählt wurde und dass auch in den ersten Jahren in Israel nicht über den Holocaust so viel geredet wurde, dass es ein bisschen wie so ein Tabuthema war, aber Eldad und Shoshi haben beide auch klar gemacht, dass es dort verschiedene Möglichkeiten gab, mit dem Thema in Kontakt zu treten. Dass Shoshi, dadurch, dass sie ihre Mutter noch besser kannte, die ist mich sehr früh gestorben, hatte sie mehr Möglichkeiten, direkt mit ihr drüber zu sprechen. Eldad hatte diese Möglichkeiten so nicht mehr in dem Maße, und Shoshi hat selber nicht viel nachgefragt. Wenn über den Holocaust gesprochen wurde, dann hat die Mutter selber erzählt. Und sie hat dann nochmal erzählt, dass sowohl ihre Mutter als auch sie in Deutschland waren und da aber auch Hemmungen hatten aufgrund der Vergangenheit. Genau, im Chat, es gab jetzt nicht so viele Fragen. There were not so many questions from the participants, and we already reached our hour, so everyone who wants to leave is welcome to leave. Everyone who wants to stay is welcome to stay. I don't know what your time limit is. I see in the
Thank you.
in the chat that there's a lot of discussion about the Zipper connections. So maybe like either you connect and have a meeting yourself, or we can do it with Norbert again, that he also contributes what he knows.
Thank you very much, Verein. I very much appreciate it, everything that you've done.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for participating.
Open that. Open the.
Maybe I give the word to each of the SIPA family members or ancestors, relatives, to say like one last word. And Moshe, do you want to start?
I just want, I suppose the best thing is a Jewish blessing. So everyone should be good and healthy and well. We're coming up to the festival of Passover, which is a festival of redemption for the Jews. Everyone should experience their own personal redemptions. And the SIPA family should be healthy and well and have many, many happy and healthy times ahead. And thank you for organizing.
Hadassah, you are also part of the SIPA family.
Hi, thank you. I'm a grandchild of Herman Sipper, and I had the weird life story of coming back to Germany, to Berlin, which was against his, he also was, like you were talking about, the second generation who never spoke about Germany or wanted to visit, but I'm the third generation. And we very much came with his blessings because we were coming to build Jewish life there in Berlin. And we had also the opportunity to visit Heidelberg and to go past his old house and to hear a lot of his memories from there. So it's really interesting for me to see this come in a way full circle and to understand the extension pieces of the family that we haven't yet had the opportunity to meet. And I hope we have more opportunities through good things. And thank you for this platform, for those who have arranged it.
Is there anyone else from the UK family?
Hello.
Stefan Stefanski or no?
Yes, yeah, Rachel Stefanski.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Hadassah is my charming, darling daughter. And before they took up this position in Berlin, they went to ask their Zaidi for his blessings. They would not have gone if he wouldn't have wanted it. And his words were, I can't think of a better revenge to Hitler than for my grandchildren to go to Berlin and build up Torah and Judaism. So they are very busy on their fight against Hitler and rebuilding what he tried so hard to destroy. I'd also like to say that Moshe Katz, who just gave you the blessing before, it's not an ordinary blessing. He is a Kohen, he is a priest, and his blessing is very powerful. And I thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to have this forum. And as both of them have said so far, I wish everybody well. And the SIPA should carry on. We are a great family, and we should carry on for many, many more generations, making those that Hitler took away, making them proud of who we are, what we stand for, and of the families that we bring up. So thank you so much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Samuel, yeah.
Yes, can I just share a photo? I'm married to a granddaughter of Herman Sipper, who was just passed away, a son of Oscar Sipper, Oscar and Selma Sala Sipper, who were the last Sippers to stay in Heidelberg. I just want to share this photo. Is that okay? Can you see this photo?
We can see it. Oh wow!
So this is 3 siblings on the side by the Neckar. This photo was taken on the 7th of August 1939, just days before they left, after their parents were sent back to Poland already. Clara Sipper, the one holding her arm on Herman Sipper, left the next day. The other 2 went on the Kindertransport about 2.5 weeks later. So, and the other photo is of Oscar Sipper with his 3 daughters walking in Heidelberg. I just thought that would be interesting.
That is an incredible, incredible picture. And if I can have a copy of it somehow, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
The older daughter didn't make it out of Germany. She was engaged to be married. She had a visa to go to Palestine. But her fiance, but her fiance did not have the visa.
She went to Geringshof near Fulda, and she was there deported from there in 1941, I think, or 43, to Riga ghetto, and after that there was no information from her. That's the old one, the one standing next to Oskar Sipper, walking next to Oskar Sipper. Yeah, so I just wanted to share, these are two photos taken in Heidelberg in the late 30s.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So is there more of the Zipper family connection from the UK? Okay, then I give the word to Shoshi and Eldad again, the closing remarks.
So thank you everyone for participating. I hope that besides the personal touch from the UK side and the Israeli side, it gave you a bit of a glimpse into how was life maybe and what happened to the people that lived in Heidelberg in those times. And I do want to raise this back to the theme of this topic. And I think that we should all remember and have these type of either meetings or Zoom or whatever type to talk about anti-Semitism and to remember, because if we will remember this, then this is who we are. And by remembering, I think that this is the important side. It doesn't matter whether it's the personal story of the zippers or any other personal story, but I think that this is the main point that we can take.
Thank you. Shoshi?
Thank you very much. It was very interesting for me.
Yeah, thank you everyone for participating. And I'm so out of my words that we had this family reunion here during our event. And some people already asked, they got confused with all the family members, and we can have a second edition. We can think about formats to have this kind of, because what Eldad said, I think that's really important. Like,
Can I make one little request? Would everybody who is a Sipper offspring just raise their hand so that we just get an idea? Would that be okay? Would anybody have an objection to that?
Sure. While people are raising their hand, I can tell you that now that Israel almost has a herd immunity, we invite all of you, zippers and non-zippers, to come visit Israel and be very glad to host you here.
We're looking forward to go on any airplane.
Also, we would be happy to have this kind of reunion in Heidelberg, really.
I look forward
very much.
Yeah, thank you. And we can keep in touch and also exchange email addresses so that the zippers can connect. And if any one of the participants has questions about the family members, the history, feel free to message me and I can forward and answer. Ja, also vielen Dank nochmal alle für die rege Teilnahme. Ich hoffe, das war alles so in Ordnung mit Englisch, Deutsch, ein bisschen durcheinander und dass die Infos alle angekommen sind. Wenn noch Fragen da sein sollten zur Familie, zu den Hintergründen, ich glaube, allen ist meine E-Mail-Adresse bekannt, schreibt ihr einfach und wir freuen uns alle auf ein Event in dieser Art 2.0 in Heidelberg, in Israel, online, wo auch immer. Ja, Solidarität grenzenlos. Ja, vielen Dank. Machen Sie es gut und bleiben Sie alle gesund. Tschüss.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.